Welcome to Set to Shelf, the Movie Props Podcast. Join Dan and Alexander as they explore the world of movie memorabilia, from blockbuster auctions and passionate collectors to industry news and conversations with the professionals who bring it all to life. If it's on set or on the shelf, we're covering it.
All right, we are back from Set to Shelf to the Movie Props Podcast. I'm Dan Gastin.
I'm Alexander Komarov.
And this week, we are joined by Zed Richards, a notorious Ghostbusters collector. Zed, thank you for taking the time. I've been following your page for a long time, and glad you were able to join us, and now we can meet virtually face-to-face. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing all right. It's got a little bit of a snowstorm up here in New York, so dealing with that. But other than that, life is good. How you doing?
I'm good, you guys. I just before we start the whole thing, I just wanted to do a little catch up with the prop store auction that happened. Just I think last week, right? Because we're talking with Dan about what I'm going to be bidding on and what's happening with all that. And basically, I went in person. A lot of fun seeing all the people. Pretty quickly, everything went high. I got outbid on everything. It looks like there is new money there that are used in Austin Powers items. So after I did the research, and the same person got all three items that I was going for: the Dr. Evil suit, the Mini-Me outfit, and the ring. It was the same bidder number online. So I thought hard, but it is what it is at this point. There'll be always other items to show up. So such is reality. But overall,
Well, the silver lining for you, Alex, is one, the value of your collection theoretically has gone up, and it's money saved for something else you can get. So it's not a terrible loss overall.
yeah, but it always sucks when you go there in person. It's like, don't get anything. It's like, I wish I got at least one thing to make me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of the UK auction, Zed, this is a question I was going to pose to you. There's no Ghostbusters items on day one. Do you have any insight as to maybe why? I mean, do you have all of them, or gotta?
Yeah, I may have all of them. Yeah. No, I really don't know. I kind of have to question how many more items are out there that we don't know about. These days, it really surprises me when something new comes across the auction block from either of the original two films. When Stuart Ziff had his special effects stuff, his Stay Puft and his Terror Dog and stuff in the last couple years in the prop store auction, that was stuff that was very cool and new, but it was kind of known that it exists.
Okay.
So it really does surprise me when something that I don't know about pops up. But no, I think it's either all sitting in this room or
Wow.
what was Peter Jackson,
Oh,
Oh yeah, that's many collectors can definitely feel that pain and resonate with that. But speaking of Ghostbusters, why Ghostbusters? What kicked this off for you? What's your origin story with collecting this stuff?
Well, I'll go back pretty far. So I was thinking about this last night. There was a book that came out in, I don't know, I'll say the mid-90s, and it was, I believe, From Star Wars to Indiana Jones. It was the Lucasfilm Archive book, and it was a really good book that just had pictures of all their props and matte paintings and everything in the Lucasfilm archives, and explaining how it was used in the films. And as a kid, that was just really cool to translate these things off the screen into something that maybe somebody could actually hold in their hand. That was kind of my first whiff of, well, maybe this stuff does exist out there. And then, fast forward a couple years, well, I guess I'll start with Ghostbusters was kind of always my go-to movie as a kid. I had a VHS tape that I just completely wore out to the point I had to buy another one,
Nice.
And, of course, there was Star Wars, there was Indiana Jones, there was E.T., there was all the great stuff from the 70s and 80s. But for whatever reason, can't even really put my finger on it today, Ghostbusters was really was really it. And, maybe it was more relatable, kind of yes, it has the supernatural and elements like that, but maybe it was just the more relatable everyman story. Anybody could be a Ghostbuster. So as a kid, it was really easy to, imagine yourself as a Ghostbuster versus a lot of other things. So uh, fast forward a couple years, I grew up a little bit, and I don't even know how I came across the auction, but the very first piece that I ever bought was from Heritage, and it was this Terror Dog concept artwork.
Oh, wow.
And this is by, they had a guy named Tom Enriquez, who is a creature design consultant. And I bought that, I believe it was 2007, somewhere in there, for like $150. Now, of course, it's worth a lot more than $150 today. But I, later on, I found there's a book by Don Shea, who was from Cinefex magazine, and it was called Making Ghostbusters. And he printed this in 1985, but I actually found that drawing in the book.
Oh, no way.
And so it is called out as basically the final drawing that Ivan Reitman and Michael Gross approved before they started building on that. So like this drawing it's the drawing. And when you look at it, you can actually see down here in the corner, I didn't know what that was initially, but that's Michael Gross's initials of him approving this drawing. So
Nice.
So, that was kind of my first foray into this. And again, I don't even remember how I came across that auction, but I bought it and I was like, cool. So I got this thing sitting on my shelf, but I still hadn't quite translated into, profiles and history didn't exist in my mind. I didn't know that was out there. Didn't know Butterfields was out there, Bonhams, any of those. So fast forward a couple years from that, and this was still kind of the only piece I had. I had it framed up on the wall, but my wife and I were actually on our honeymoon. We went to Disney World, and we went to MGM Studios, which is what it was at the time, and just inside there is Sid Cahuenga's Antiques and Curious shop, which at the time in the park they actually sold production materials and movie props.
Yep.
I remember they had a Dick Van Dyke jacket from the Jolly Holiday scene in Mary Poppins for sale in there. And I remember specifically they had a $65,000 price tag on it, which at the time just seemed like, oh my gosh, today that's probably a bargain for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, like,
But I actually bought this there. This is a set of Dragnet business cards from the Dan Aykroyd Dragnet movie.
oh, very cool.
And I bought it, but that kind of sparked something in me that was like, you need to go further explore this stuff. So, I got on the internet and really started found out about profiles and history. There was a old movie prop forum that had big collectors in it that you kind of had to be asked to come in, that I got in that somehow. I probably didn't belong there. And then I kind of linked up with people. So just kind of next on the journey was this. This is a stunt foam proton pack gun.
Oh,
close. I picked this up. That was the next piece. And then really kind of the big piece at the time was this, and this is all 2008, 2009. It's the Omni magazine cover. So you'll remember from the montage in the first Ghostbusters movie, they have all those fake magazine covers like Time magazine and New York Times and stuff, where the guys are on the front page. And this is one of those. I can't remember the name of the guy that made them all, but this came in a way from Planet Hollywood. I guess it was on display in a Planet Hollywood somewhere. And then, Planet Hollywood, that's what a lot of people don't realize, I think, is a lot of the cooler and better items over the years probably seeded out of Planet Hollywood's archives, especially Ghostbusters stuff, but I think probably a lot of other properties too. Planet Hollywood, the big auction they had at Heritage last year, that's not the first time all their stuff's gone on sale. They did have another big auction, I think, in 2002, 2004, sometime.
Oh,
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff was more classic Hollywood, probably that wasn't as popular anymore at the time. Uh, I think y'all have talked about there's a time frame for certain decades of movies nowadays that they're just not popular anymore. Yes, The Wizard of Oz and Citizen Kane will probably always be popular, but I don't know who's necessarily collecting from Cleopatra anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but that was my next piece, and it's just a glossy photo that they took vinyl and cut out and laid the vinyl over it. So it's got a little age on it, but it's one of the cooler pieces. And really, I thought when I got this, I was like, okay, well, I mean, that's, I got that foam gun, I got the drawing, I've got this thing. That's it, right? I mean, that's all I need.
Little did you know.
So, but that's kind of how I got started.
So what year was that? I remember, like,
So-
what year, like early 2000s or?
Yeah, is about, we'll just say 2009 is when I really started buying stuff. So
It's a long time. So, and you got lucky because you were in that time where like things were way cheaper than it is now. So
my
it's like
goodness,
I always feel
I don't think I could have this collection today,
right.
especially for the price I paid for it. Even just this Marshmallow Man head behind me, that was actually the next thing I bought in 2009. I don't remember the Profiles auction, but it was when Richard Edlund, who his entertainment, although I guess he bought out Entertainment Effects Group in Marina Del Rey. He did he worked at ILM, did all special effects for Star Wars, or excuse me, visual effects for Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and then he famously kind of went and started his own special effects house in as Boss Films, and his first two projects concurrently were Ghostbusters and the sequel to 2001, 2010. So he kind of famously got money from the studio for both films, and they kind of paid for each other while he made the visual effects. And in the same building, I've got Polaroids around here somewhere that someone had taken. Ghostbuster stuff is over here, and then they just kind of turn the camera, and there's like the Space Baby from 2010 and other stuff hanging up over here. So all this was going on in the same place at the same time. But he did the visual effects for Ghostbusters, and then around 2009, he had a big auction where they were clearing out his warehouse, and there was a pair of Marshmallow Man mechanical heads in that auction that I bought, and I want to say I only paid like $5,000 for both of them at the time. I don't know what an animatronic Marshmallow Man head is worth these days, 16 years later, but I bet it's more than $5,000. So yeah, it's inflation is definitely here, but it does help to have been collecting this long, definitely. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Wow. I'm envious. Wish I was born a lot sooner, but that's that's incredible, man. That's wow. Now, what I mean, since you brought them up, like what do you know the sequences the yours were used in?
Yeah, so basically they made three heads. There was one that was the kind of the happy sailor smiling face. And then there were two heads that were very similar, that both of them kind of went from a shocked to kind of a pain grimace face. And both of those heads were set on fire. So that's probably why it doesn't have any foam latex skin left on it now, is because they were set on fire. I do have a series of Polaroids that actually has there's an arm behind me too. So this head and this arm, like the Marshmallow Man gets shot by the guys, and then he kind of butts up against the building, and there's a shot looking down, and the Marshmallow Man's looking up, and the flames shoot up, and it's a blinking, you'll miss it. The arm just kind of goes but that's one shot, and then the other hit I have was at the very end when the guys are crossing the streams. The Marshmallow Man pops up behind them and kind of makes an oh dang face by really and so that's where the other head was used. So
Wow, that's remarkable. That's so cool.
Now, how do you display them? Do you have them in the cases or?
no, I've got I really like the light up pedestal displays, so I've got each one on a light up pedestal display. The other head, actually, I'm doing kind of a cool project with it right now. I managed to come upon a plaster casting that they did of these heads, and
Was that sold at Van Eaton a couple months last
Yeah.
year? Or
Yeah.
I know. So yep.
So I got that head, but it was for nefarious purposes. So originally, this head has kind of a half display of skin on it that Tom Spina did years ago, and at the time, I told him, hey, I want to put a full skin on this thing, and he talked me out of it, which was probably the right thing to do because what I wanted to do really probably wouldn't have been good for it. But since I have two heads that are so similar, and the other one still retains all its mechanical controls and functionality, I'm using that plaster head to have a skin made to put on there, and then you'll see it when I post it, but it will have basically be full functionality as it looks. So it'll have the front half of that head's going to have a foam latex skin for display, but you'll be able to play with the controls and stuff. So it'll be really cool when we get that done.
Wow, that's awesome. And I mean, I only want to show up at auction, but the hats, the Stay Puft hats, the only one that came up that it looked, it was disintegrating essentially. But is that really the only one that's known to be out there?
No, so there was one that sold, well, maybe still surviving, yes. Now, I had been after Planet Hollywood for that hat for years. And so the fact that I didn't win it, that's probably one of my big auction regrets. But it quite frankly, I could have gone higher, but I didn't think it was worth more than what it sold for. I really have a hard time overpaying, especially when my red line was $10,000 back the other way. And it really doesn't even have anything to do with resale value or anything like that. I guess I just have a kind of an arbitrary idea of what the value should be, and I'm just not willing to go past that. So, but no, I had been after Planet Hollywood for that hat in particular for years. It was in the Planet Hollywood in Dallas for a long time before they shut that location down. And I had been in contact with them, probably pestering them for years, and they kept saying, no, we don't want to sell it yet. No, we don't want to sell it yet. And then it really kind of shocked me when I saw it come up for auction, because by that point I didn't think it existed anymore. I just thought they were kind of leading me on. Yeah, no, it's still here, but yeah, it definitely was in bad shape. It went for a lot more than I was willing to pay for it. Same with the year before in the Stuart Ziff auction, they had the I don't know what they call it, the little red tie that sat under his bid. I really wanted that, but that went for a lot more than I thought it was personally worth. But no, to get back to your question, there is one other hat that has come to auction. It was at a 1990 or 91 auction with Sotheby's, I believe. Or no, excuse me, Christie's. It was Christie's 1990. It had a set of hands and a hat. Now, hands are like a dime a dozen. There's like 800 hands out there. I got one sitting over there. I got this great big one back here. But the hat was rare, and I had actually tracked down who bought it from that auction years later, and they told me they threw it away because it had. Yep, yep. They said the foam latex started to disintegrate, so they trashed it.
Wow.
Lovely.
And I believe the hands, they ended up with a collector over in. They ended up at like a bookstore in New York, I think, who auctioned them, and they ended up with a collector over in the UK, I think. But the hat, as far as I know, this one that just came up at Prop Store, it very well is the only one that still exists, because I think the rest of them got burned.
Yeah.
And that was a big excuse for a long time is, well, no Stay Puft stuff survived because it all caught on fire and it all burned. But that's simply not true. But yeah, no, I just couldn't believe that. My heart sank when they threw it away. That's tear jerking. That's bad.
Yeah, it's a gut punch. It's obviously people collectors now. It's more. I mean, even just preserving these things, are pieces of history. If you're to hear something, just someone throwing it out. It's just one. It's the theoretical dollar amount that they're throwing out, but two, it's just like you preserving these things to last for years to come. Because Ghostbusters, I think it definitely has a multi generational touch on people. So I definitely think it's going to be relevant. Even the newer installments of Afterlife and what Frozen Empire. It's the Stay Puft. There's still a presence of that character. So that's we're seeing throw it out.
Well, and people will buy just crumbs of something that still exists. So they could have got their money back and then some, just auctioning off something that was falling apart. So yeah, I couldn't believe it. But anyway, such is life.
Yeah, exactly.
So now with the pricing so high, like how do you like keep collecting? Because auction houses, the opening bids are so high and everything is so expensive. Like, do you try to do private deals, or you still kind of try to go for something at the auctions? Like, what's the strategy like in 2025, almost 2026?
A lot of my recent acquisitions are private deals. That does keep it down quite a bit. I don't know. That's a tough question, because obviously the prices are just going to keep going higher and higher and higher, and far exceed what any reasonable person would pay for a lot of this stuff. So I don't know. Unfortunately, I didn't buy 10,000 Bitcoin years ago, so I'm not a Bitcoin billionaire, but that's no, that's that has been most of my strategy lately. Those private deals. So
Okay, like that's the way to do it. I try to do the same, especially after these numbers. It's
oh yeah, yep. Well, and Ghostbusters, just a good example. Their jumpsuits. Years ago, I bought a Ernie Hudson jumpsuit, which arguably, for better or worse, Ernie, he's a great character to me, but the studios didn't push his character as much as they did the other three guys, and so arguably he's the less popular character of the franchise commercially. I think he's really the guy that's championing the franchise right now and keeping it alive for the fans. I've got to meet him a few times. He's a fantastic guy, but just commercially, unfortunately, I think he was the less popular character, and auction prices for his stuff reflected that over the years. I've got a jumpsuit of his from Ghostbusters 2 that I believe I bought, we'll just say around 15 years ago, for, I think, around $7,500, which at the time, that was a lot of money, but that was also the low end of what they were selling for. And I believe in the Planet Hollywood auction, they had a jumpsuit of his from Ghostbusters 2. It was one that was hanging up in Orlando, that I think it went for like $20-something thousand. So,
Oh, wow.
Just in that 10-year period, the low end has raised that much. The high end, I've got a spreadsheet here of all the jumpsuits that have sold in the past 25 years. There's been around 23 separate auctions. Now, some of them were repeats and some of them weren't, but with buyer's premium, they're going for $40,000-$50,000 these days. So I don't know how, especially a new collector off the street, enters at that price. I want a Ghostbusters piece. Well, they're expensive these days, and arguably Ghostbusters is one of the less expensive franchises to collect from versus your Star Wars or what have you. So
Yeah, no, 100%. Like you said, it is a new collector come off the street. And I think too, it's the market itself overall, just people are just discovering it. So I can only see these prices, like you said, in the past 25 years, these things have skyrocketed. So I can always, my gut would be these things are going to rise exponentially. But again, who knows? It's all speculative, but it's trend line is definitely ticking up. Still blows my mind every auction. And then, Zed, is in your collection, what's kind of the most surprising or unexpected item that you've ever found, whether it be auction, private deal? Is there like a unique story behind it?
well, I've got a couple different items. Most recently is this jumpsuit that I've got sitting over here. So I kind of told you the story offline. In the Stuart Berkowitz auction at Heritage, they had listed several Ghostbusters items on session 2 of the auction, which was the online only portion, which is where all the replicas and stuff was. And initially I had kind of ignored it because it all was listed as a replica, but when I got to looking at it, this jumpsuit was not a replica. It's a real Dan Aykroyd jumpsuit from the first movie, which, like I said a moment ago, I believe 23 jumpsuit auctions have happened over the last 25 years or so. Only 3 jumpsuits from the first movie have ever come out. 2 of them are sitting in this room. There's another 2 that I know about out there. One is at a comedy club in LA, and then one is that's another Dan Aykroyd. I don't know why he has so many sitting out there, but and then there is Harold Ramis costume at the National Comedy Museum. I think it's in Jamestown, New York. His family donated his Ghostbusters costume. He kept his glasses, his script. I think that's all on display up there. So 5 known. The other one is a Bill Murray costume that went up in 2008 and then reappeared at a prop store in 2017, I think. So, but this jumpsuit over here, I recognized kind of immediately. There's markings inside the collar from the Burbank studios, which is where they shot I believe on stage 15 and 16. They built, I think, Dana and Lewis's apartment set on stage 15, and then the huge rooftop set was built on stage 16, which is famously that very big and tall stage there. And so that was all at the Burbank studios. And then I guess a number of costumes must have been left there after shooting because they were folded into Warner Brothers inventory and kind of have been leaking out over the years. That Bill Murray costume was one of them. This one was one of them. And then I believe, I want to say a Gozer costume, the white leotard with the bubbles all over it, also came from the Burbank studios. But anyway, I recognized the markings inside the collar, and then I went and checked my reference, and it had originally sold at a auction. I want to say it was Bonham's, or maybe it was Butterfield's, in around 2000. And then it came back up in 2006 at Profiles 25. This is my Profiles 25 catalog. So that's the original listing. The original estimate was 8 to 10,000, but it calls out in the description the markings inside the label as they appear on that one. So, it sat kind of untouched online for a couple weeks till the auction rolled around, and then I had put in a fairly high bid on it just in case right before it came up, and I guess someone else out there obviously knew what it was, had a hunch what it was, maybe wanted to flip it. I don't know, but over the course of about a minute, bidding went from $200 up to $7,000, but then it stopped. So I did get that for $7,000 plus buyer's premium. Super excited to get one that cheap. The last one I got from prop store 6 or 7 years ago definitely wasn't that cheap. So to have this one that cheap, relatively speaking, was really exciting. Does raise a lot of questions. Who else out there knew about it? What did they intend to do with it? I think they maybe were willing to bid on it but not own it. Yeah. But anyway, it's screen matched. I've been able to screen match it. I screen matched it before I bid on it. It was used there. It's got a funny way the zipper pull is attached to the zipper. There's only one shot in the movie where Dan Aykroyd's zipper is like that on his costume, and it's basically from the time they get out of the car in front of Sigourney Weaver's apartment until the street opens up and they all fall in the street. So it was used during that short sequence in New York City, and then the other costume I've got over there was used. It was all used on the rooftop sequence on stage 16. So, but that's probably the most shocking item in my collection. And then just kind of interesting backstories. The other jumpsuit I've got, like I said, was used on stage 16. I unfortunately don't know the history of it before Prop Store got a hold of it several years ago, but there's a great making of book for Ghostbusters Afterlife. And in that book, there is a reference photo that they used of patches and stuff to make the jumpsuits for Afterlife. And that's the patch on my jumpsuit over there. All the spacing and the threads match. So Sony actually used that jumpsuit as reference to make the new jumpsuits in the new movie. So that was pretty cool to just come across that.
Yeah.
So, wow. And then one other kind of prop adjacent thing. There was a Julian's auction a couple years ago that had this VHS in it. So it's a kind of old crusty VHS of the Show West promo reel that was shown at the Show West out in Las Vegas. It's kind of a preview of the movie. Purpose was to get theater owners to book the film in their theaters. So it had Sony had previously released this on, I believe, the 35th anniversary Blu-ray. So there's a real good Steelbook Blu-ray that came with came with a rough cut that Ivan Reitman had found on a VHS that his dad and Sheldon Kahn had put together. So that alone was worth the price of the Blu-ray, I think. If you haven't seen it, I'd recommend buying it. It's worth the money just because it's kind of a weird alternate reality Ghostbusters. It's like the movie, but almost every shot is different, like a different take. So it definitely doesn't flow as good as the movie we got in theaters, but it's very interesting to watch. But they also included footage from the Show West reel on there. But what they included had basically no music, no score, nothing on it. When I got this VHS, it had music, it had a score, and it had as far as I know, previously unheard Ghostbusters theme song, not by Ray Parker Jr. So Ray Parker Jr., I've watched interviews with him, and he basically kind of said, "Oh, Sony or Columbia at the time did 100 different songs or however many different songs, and they didn't like it, and then he came up with his, and it was a smash hit." But this has one of those songs on it. So a friend of mine, Derek Osborne, and I bought some real high quality VCRs to pull all this footage off of, and we kind of ripped all that and put it out on the internet a couple years ago. But that was a cool and unexpected find to have something that no one's heard in 40 years. So
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great you let other people access it. That's great. And then, Zed, you mentioned a couple minutes ago, jumpsuits. Only a few are out. Certain number out there. So, you only mentioned one Bill Murray. Like, do you have an accounting for how many they made for the film for each character, and how many are out there, or where are they?
well, like I said, 2 of them are here.
Yeah.
No, I want to say from what I can put together, and from going scene by scene in the film just to research my own costumes, I think there were probably around 5 or 6 made for each character. This jumpsuit I have over here, y'all might recall it's kind of weirdly faded. It's two-tone, so portions of it are a different color from other portions, whereas this other jumpsuit, it's all the same color. And I guess, shout out to costumes designer Theone Aldridge. She was a Oscar-winning costume designer that did the costumes for this movie. I believe she won her Oscar for, I want to say, what was it? The Great Gatsby, I think, 1974. They must have at some point made as many suits as they could have out of one bolt of fabric, and then had some of that fabric left over, and then had to get another bolt of fabric and dye it to match. And you can even see that in portions of the film, the two-tone effect on some of the jumpsuits if you really pay attention. So that's why that one faded the way it did. The darker portions actually match the khaki on this one when you put them side by side, so that just kind of further confirms that theory. But I think, get back to your question, I think there's probably around 5 or 6 made for each character just from the variations I've been able to see going through scene by scene. So, there's 1, 2, 3 Dan Aykroyd's accounted for, 1 Bill Murray, and 1 Harold Ramis. I know of a Ernie Hudson costume that went, I've got a picture of that. It went at auction in the mid-90s, so that's one of his. So there's, still potentially 20 of these things sitting out there in a thrift store in L.A. or something, So I don't know. It's hard to say. Ghostbusters 2, they obviously made, just judging by the number of auctions that have had Ghostbusters 2 jumpsuits, they made quite a few, but probably around the same. I think, just from what I can see, Planet Hollywood probably ended up with most of them over the years. I think they definitely had the largest collection of them either way, and then eventually let them go back out of their collection, but probably about that many.
It's a lot.
It always blows my mind. It's just, how many we think they make for a film, and we end up finding how much they actually made, and vice versa. So I mean, luckily, you have a good accounting for them, and you assemble them. So that's great.
I mean, it's hard to back in the day, nobody was thinking about that stuff. Even like when I was talking to Gina Appel, the Austin Powers designer, she said if I knew it would be so valuable for some people, I would have made, I would have made a list of how many we made of what, but we were just making a movie. I don't remember how many we made, 3, 4, so it's sometimes costume designers don't remember because A, is being so long, 2, it's it didn't matter. It's just they're making a movie and time goes by and they kind of, a lot of them forget oh, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 4, but we'll see them when they show up.
Well, and, thankfully they're not, Thor hammers or anything like that. There's not about, a million of them sitting out there, and that's one good thing about collecting from Ghostbusters in particular is for the most part, there's actual pictures of the studio showing up. That was in Richard Edlund's contract, I guess, was he had to turn over all molds and things after filming. So there's actual video, or excuse me, photos of the studio showing up with big flatbed trucks loading up all the Terror Dog molds, all the Stay Puft molds and things like that, and carting them off, I assume, to be destroyed. So you really don't have to worry about someone having a mold socked away and leaking out fakes over the years of some of this stuff.
That's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, especially with 80s films, films from the 80s, and it's very hard to, like, like, even, like, I have the Beetlejuice sign behind me. You just looking at this stuff, like, you just know from the wear and tear, the age of this stuff from, from that long ago.
Yep.
But yes, but yeah, Thor hammers, I love it.
They never go away.
I'm not free myself.
Now, Zed, do you collect from other films or just the Ghostbusters? And when it comes to Ghostbusters, is it just first two films, or you also do the other ones as well?
Well, I'll answer the second part of your question first. I do collect from, I do have some pieces from Afterlife and some pieces from Frozen Empire. I've got a few of those right here. I've got a cool, again, not a lot out there from each one, but this is a belt buckle.
Oh, wow.
That was worn by the sheriff in Afterlife, and it's was actually done by a silversmith up in Canada. It's very intricately, it's all hand done. It's got the fictional Somerville County, Oklahoma sheriff's crest on it, and then a little G for Gozer on there, which is kind of a plot that they didn't fully flesh out. I think they intended to, because there was a lot of Gozer signage and stuff on set that I think they either cut it out or they didn't go into that subplot. But and then I've got a crew gift trap that lights up that
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Ben Eady put together. Scott, see, there's Rust City. That was the shooting title for it. So that's a really cool thing. And then I did win, I think in two separate auctions, past couple of years, Prop Store had quite a few continuity photos that came up for Afterlife, and I did win those. And then I've got from Frozen Empire, probably the coolest thing I've got. I'll have to send you a picture of it. It's a Ghostbusters 2 jumpsuit that was in the background as an Easter egg. So at the end of the movie, when they're all suiting up, behind Dan Aykroyd, you can see a Ghostbusters 2 jumpsuit hanging up in the peace sign patches sitting behind him in his locker. And it's just a kind of a blink if you miss it thing. But I guess the story behind that is they had to do reshoots in Atlanta, so they had to recreate the interior of the firehouse there, and there was some guys there from the Yes Have Some podcast that Sony has a real good relationship with, and so they called them up and said, hey, do you have, we want to put these in as an Easter egg, and they said, yeah, we've got those. So they got to put their jumpsuits in, and then one of them let that go to me. So that was a really cool thing, and they also included a screen-used stance patch from one of the jumpsuits from Frozen Empire with that kind of as a gift back to them. So I got that too. So very limited things, but for the most part, I think those two entries are okay. I don't like them as much as the original two films, so I probably wouldn't go hog wild collecting them. I think I've watched Afterlife outside of the theater maybe once as a whole. I'll play the last 20 minutes when the original guys show up every once in a while.
Yeah, that's the good part.
But Frozen Empire, my wife and kids and I actually got to go to the premiere up in New York for that in March of last year. So, that was more of a familial thing that we all got to share, and that's kind of why I ended up going after that jumpsuit. It's just kind of a cool keepsake from that experience, and that was really cool. We got to stand on the red carpet and watch all the guys come in, and oh wow, we actually God, there was really raucous Ghostbusters fans inside, and we actually ended up we left the tent once the red carpet was done, and I guess the actors were still going through the red carpet inside with all the fans signing and stuff, and the crowd was getting really rowdy there when Paul Rudd was walking through, and we just kind of saw him, and he was trying to get out of there to get to the theater, and we ended up riding up 3 flights of escalator with him 2 feet behind us. So I was like, okay, just play it cool, kids,
Yeah.
Real crazy. That was cool. That was my 5 minutes with him, but that was cool. Now as far as other properties, I have kind of an eclectic taste. That just kind of goes back to the stuff that I was interested in my childhood. Really, I spent a lot of time watching TV shows. So one of my favorite TV shows was Chips. So I've got Robert Pine's Sergeant Gautreau's badge,
Nice.
which you'll see at the bottom it says C-161. So I guess the California Highway Patrol had a really good relationship with the Chips production at the time, and actually let them shoot at Central Station there until they built their own replica of it. So they even had their actual badge manufacturer in Tin Men make badges for the production, but so they didn't get mixed up, they put a alphanumeric sequence on them. The later seasons, the badges actually, where the number goes, actually just said Chips and then had a number after it. But I got this, and then of course you can't have that without a motorcycle helmet.
Oh,
Yeah.
no way.
That's so cool.
And then along the way at Profiles, I actually found a Robert Pine uniform shirt, so I've got a good display with that on it. I've also got a Larry Wilcox who played John Baker. I've got one of his uniform shirts. Still haven't managed to snag an Eric Estrada shirt. I don't know what it is. Every time one comes up, I miss it. So maybe I'll get it one day. I've got a Michael Dorn CHP shirt. Michael Dorn played Worf. He was on Chips first. So I've got one of his shirts. And then I've got some cool stuff. I also like MASH is one of my favorite shows. So that's hard to find anything from that show. I've got a bunch of scripts and stuff. I've got a really cool blueprint of the entire compound. It's about 4 feet by 4 feet that I've got framed up on that wall that came from their I believe one of their camera operators. So that's a kind of a cool one and done piece from MASH, since it's so hard to get stuff from. They did have a Colonel Potter and a radar cap in the Berkowitz auction, but that was in session 1, and this jumpsuit was in session 2. And that's another thing, is timing
Yeah.
inside the auction itself. Sometimes they really put stuff in the wrong order, because if they would put the big piece first, then I could worry about all these little pieces. Yeah, they more often I find that I have to pass over the first 30 things I really like to make sure I can get this thing here at the end. So, but I also collect from Wes Anderson films. So I've got a pair of Willem Dafoe's brass knuckles from the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then, I think everybody's got a Mendel's cake box. There's 3 million of these out there. And then from the Royal Tenenbaums, I've got a couple of the fake books that
Nice.
they had in that. And then I've got on a mannequin over there, I'll have to send you a picture of that. I've got a cool setup from The Life Aquatic. It's a full Team Zissou costume, and then I got that from Prop Store along with They had kind of like some coral and seaweed and stuff, so it made for a really cool display to set all that together. And then let's see, oh yeah, this is another one from the Grand Budapest Hotel, one of those fake newspapers, Will There Be War?
Nice.
And then kind of a more recent one, I really took a liking to The Man in the High Castle on Amazon, I believe. And so this is Inspector Keto's gun that he uses in the series. So he's kind of the main, I don't remember what the Japanese secret police is, but he's kind of the main antagonist of that force. So I got to pick that up. And then, I've dabbled in kind of the single franchise auctions that have come out over the years. I've got some stuff that I picked up from the Pacific on HBO. I bought a full Judge costume from the Dread auction that Prop Store had years ago. A lot of that I've since let go. I've found that I participate in those because there's still kind of a hype around it, and I really like the property. But in the end, I end up letting that stuff go and focusing on the core collection. So
Core collection is important. And I was I'm gonna ask you about these two pieces in your collection because I think they're phenomenal. I kind of want to hear your reaction to when you saw this one pop up in the auction catalog. Vigo the Carpathian. I love that costume. I love the character and just the whole like goofiness, or not goofiness, but how the character's name in the movie's drawn up like the museum curator. His whole just demeanor towards Vigo, and it's just how he interacts with Sigourney throughout the film. It's just hysterical. So I want to hear your take on that popping up and acquiring it.
That was really probably of anything in my collection, that was my childhood. I probably watched Ghostbusters 2 more than I watched Ghostbusters when I was a kid. And Vigo was the big scary thing that I thought about when I went to sleep at night. That was as a kid, that was Ghostbusters 2, I think. And it was in the production. Columbia made a lot of decisions to make it more kid friendly because of the popularity of the cartoon series, and so they kind of shoehorned Slimer back in that film and did a lot of things to make it more kid friendly. But as a kid, that probably was my favorite movie, and this is another one of those that I've been around long enough. This is the second time I've seen it. I remember when Screen Used sold it a million years ago on their website, and I remember seeing pictures of it hanging up in that collector's. I think he had a converted church chapel that he had it displayed in or something, along with the big Vigo picture behind it. But and I think it went for, I want to say, I'll be wrong, but I want to say it was some ridiculous amount, like $2,500 that Screen Used sold it for.
Oh my God.
That was just because no one wanted it. It just no one wanted that thing. But no, I couldn't believe it when it came up. So I instantly formulated a plan of, I'm going to get it, and this is how I'm going to get it, and this is what might have to go. But by God, I'm going to get that Vigo. So and I did, and that was one of the coolest things, definitely one of the coolest things I've got, and it would be one of the last things to go out the door. I can tell you that.
That's remarkable. Listen, the design of it, because instantly, even if I don't know, you just look at it, what it is. Like that's Vigo, and it's like you said, it's something that stood out from your childhood watching the film, and I don't know, it's really a badass costume.
It is, and my friend Derek Osborne that I mentioned earlier, he's the archivist, I believe, on a documentary that the second part is about to come out. The first part was called Cleaning Up the Town, and it's by Anthony and Claire Bueno. I believe they live over in the UK, and they're about to come out with the second part called Too Hot to Handle. And they've been working on this for years and years and years. And they have, interviews with all the original actors and things like that. So it's the definitive documentary. But through this, Derek uncovered a lot of things. This Vigo costume there was only one that's confirmed, and it was made. I forget the name of it, but it was made by a BDSM shop in New York that specialized in like leather bondage and things like that. So of course, yes, they're the ones that made this. So
Naturally. That's hysterical. Wow. And I'm glad, like that's with you. And then, my second question is in sitting over your left shoulder, the Statue of Liberty.
yes. So
That's, it was that for people who aren't looking at,
okay, so
not familiar, what is
so
that?
this is basically a sculpt mask of the Statue of Liberty for Ghostbusters 2. If people don't know, just like the Marshmallow Man was a guy in a Marshmallow Man suit, the Statue of Liberty was a guy in a Statue of Liberty suit. So they sculpted a full-scale, a person-scale Statue of Liberty for all of the walking scenes and the Lady Liberty slamming the torch into the top of the museum and such. And this is actually a production piece that I got years ago that was unfinished, and then I had it finished. But it is the full wraparound rear of the head mask that would have gone on the actor, plus a hard cast resin face, and then a resin crown. And I guess the guy who was wearing it just had to take audio directions because he couldn't see out of this costume. Whereas the Marshmallow Man, you could actually see through the mouth. It had kind of a bicycle helmet mounted in it, and you wore the head and then looked through the mouth. This guy just took pure audio directions to do that performance. But that's those two things, I think, together are kind of a one and done of Ghostbusters 2. If you had nothing else, you would know, okay, that's the Ghostbusters 2 collection, so they are super cool pieces. And I was happy to find that Lady Liberty head, but that's another eBay special that sat there for years or seemed like years, and just no one wanted, and just kept coming back up, and finally I got it and had it finished. So
Nice. It looks great. And you never know what you're going to find on eBay.
Yeah, that's
no, and to go back to collecting strategy, eBay is still a valid source of things like that. There are crew members, or especially family members of passed on crew, who don't necessarily know about the auction houses, or maybe don't want to deal with the auction houses, and they take it straight to eBay. And that's definitely, there are still gems to be had on there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And then, what is it, piggybacking off that, is there anything that that you still want in your collection that you have yet to either get a chance at, or it's out there, but you're kind of waiting for the day? Or
Well, there's been a series of things over the years that we do know exist that I didn't have a chance at. The auction that had the Marshmallow Man heads in it, it also had, it had the large scale Terror Dog statue head that I've got sitting there. That didn't sell, or did sell, and then it went to Prop Store, I think, and really might have sold or not. And then Tom Spina restored it, and then all of a sudden everybody wanted to buy it because then it looked good again. But he also had they had found and restored the full, 10-foot tall miniature model of the rooftop that went along with the Stay Puft costume. So they sold that in that auction. I want to say that ended up in a collection in Asia, because I think I've seen an exhibition photo of that. But a lot of the other, they had the librarian cable controlled armature from when she transforms from the sweet old lady to the Creepshow monster, and that's in Peter Jackson's collection, so he got that. I've seen that. So but I would have liked a chance at that. if the Marshmallow Man had ever came back up, I'd take another run at it, but not for $50,000. It's not a $50,000 piece. I'm sorry, I don't think it is, and I got to draw the line somewhere. So there are things that, like I think if the Gozer costume ever came back up for auction, I'd go for that, definitely. That kind of came to auction before I was really buying things, so I'd love to have a shot at taking a run at that. But I want to say when it sold 15 years ago or however long it was, that it was for like $12,000. I don't think it'd go for $12,000 for Gozer these days, and that's just one of those unfortunate then versus now things like we talked about. But let's see. I'd love a shot. I believe I watched a Rick Moranis interview recently where he said he kept his glasses from every movie that he worked in. So,
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
I'd love a shot at his Louis Tully glasses from either film. That'd be awesome. He's, because of his unfortunate situation with his wife passing, he did retire from acting years ago, but he was a really great character actor and comedian. So, and again, I think y'all mentioned maybe on your Christmas episode that I just watched, all the great comedians coming from Canada. So you had Rick Moranis and Dan Aykroyd. I believe they're both from Canada.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
another great Canadian comedian.
And he's coming back for Spaceballs. Spaceballs too.
Yeah.
Moranis coming
Yeah.
back out.
And that's, I hope that it's everything we want it to be. A lot of these reunion movies never seem to work out. So I hope, since it basically is everybody except John Candy, but I think John Candy's son may be in it playing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
So,
he is. Yeah.
Yep. So I really hope that's everything we want it to be. The only other thing, I've got a stunt foam ghost trap from the first film. I can't say I'd necessarily want to take a run at a ghost trap or a proton pack, especially these days. The Hero ghost trap sold 350,000, something like that, a year or two ago at Prop Store. That's cool. That's not something that I looked at and said I need to have that.
They are cool. They're cool. I mean, I handled one 3 years ago. I mean, I think it was from the second film. It was on wheels. It had it was functional. It was Hero, like the light lit up. It had the like a felt like material that stuck to around the edges. Essentially, I believe they added some sort of like liquid that mimicked like a fog like effect to mimic the trap is full. They're cool. They're heavy. But they always go for crazy amounts of money.
Yeah. And maybe my outlook would be different if I was only trying to collect like a key piece from each movie. Of course a trap or a proton pack would be, I think, the key piece,
Right.
Yeah.
Ghostbuster, the Vigo suit, that's a key piece. Maybe my outlook would be different, but when I'm trying to collect everything, it changes. I have evidence that it might exist out there, or at least did. I would like to see Sigourney Weaver's kind of metallic red gold dress from the end of the first movie that she wore after she got possessed. I'd like to see that. If that ever came up, I'd definitely take a run at that. But for the most part, I'm pretty content. There's occasionally cool pieces that come up that I'll take a run at, but most of the stuff that comes up, I guess I'm out of the I have to have everything that comes up at every auction phase, and I'm definitely out of like I'm not. I promise I'm not buying any more scripts or storyboards, or I've got to stack this tall of scripts and storyboards. I don't need any more of that. So. Maybe some key pieces like that. but again, not necessarily the equipment pieces. I'm pretty content with like the ghost trap I have. I know that was used. It was used by Dan Aykroyd or his stunt double. You can tell they rolled around on it and it was in the movie. Some of these other ones, it might be harder to say, well, this is exactly where this was used or not. So,
Yeah. And, again, piggybacking off of your comment about Rick Moranis keeping his glasses for his films, do you know of any of the actors from the first two films who they kept stuff they used, any costumes or props, or it's pretty hush hush?
I know Ernie Hudson kept a couple of his costumes because he did end up wearing. He had one of the darker charcoal suits from Part 2, and I think he might have kept a suit from Part 1 as well that he wore on the convention circuit. Uh, as far as anyone else, Harold Ramis did keep one of his costumes and his glasses, but like I said, his family donated to that comedy museum, so he did. I don't know, no confirmation that anyone else did. A lot of the real key pieces, including that Hero remote control ghost trap, those actually were all kept by Michael Gross, who was a producer on both films, and then he kind of seeded them out into the world as time went on. I believe that particular ghost trap sold around 1990 or 91 originally, with a letter from him for $7,000, something like that. And that that was a lot in 1991.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even inflation doesn't account for that these days. So, imagine, and he unfortunately died from cancer a few years back. But imagine if he had kept it all these years and sold it recently. That definitely would have been a different story. He also kept several costumes from Part 2. I know he also had a squeegee bulb sniffer thing that Bill Murray uses in Sigourney's apartment when he's first checking out her apartment. He kept that and put it at a Profiles auction years ago. So I know Ivan Reitman kept at least a few things. He's got or he had before he passed. He had a Richard Edlund's team made a couple terror dog head busts that they mounted kind of like as hunting trophies, and Ivan Reitman has one of those that's hanging up in the Ghost Corps office right now on the Sony lot. And then I believe Richard Edlund, the one that belonged to him, came up auction or two ago at Prop Store. That was a cool piece, but I've already got so much terror dog stuff. It really didn't. I don't need another one. Richard Edlund, of course, kept such a vast archive of his stuff that he has put up for auction over the years. Stuart Ziff, who was the head of the ghost shop as they called it. He kept a ton of stuff. I was fortunate to get two of the three arms that pop up out of the chair and hold Sigourney Weaver down before she gets pulled into the kitchen. So I've got two of those arms. There was three. I've got two of them. The last one got away from me at that auction, but I've got two of them. And then, Don Pennington kept a ton of stuff that he's kind of let out into the world over the years. I've got one. That's where my Marshmallow Man hand came from, was him. But no, that's all the confirmed pieces that the actors that we know of that they kept. Going back to Ivan Reitman, I know he's got an early kind of a 2-foot tall maquette of an early version of Slimer that Steve Johnson has sculpted. And then I believe he was also a prolific art collector. I didn't know that. And there was a auction last year, I think, of a lot of his art collection. And I mean, I'm talking like Van Goghs and things like that. So uh, on display in this little exhibit, they had one more of the faux magazine covers from the montage of the first film. So I know he kept at least one of those. But that's really it. And, aside from a few bits and pieces that we just don't know where they are or if they exist, yeah, I think most stuff is really, I don't want to say everything that's out there is out there, but I kind of think it is for the most part. There will be a few surprise pieces, but at this point, I can't imagine what those would be because most of the pieces have already surfaced over the years. So.
Yeah, how much, like you say, how much more is out there, and like from the film, like there's only so much stuff from the film that you could possibly want. So yeah.
Oh, well, and to go back to an earlier question, things that I might want, I'd love the Happy Sailor Stay Puffed head, the cable controlled head, if that ever existed. But I came into contact with a person over the years who was the child of a crew member who claimed that their dad had brought it home after filming, and it kind of sat in the corner over the years till the skin started falling off, and they trashed it. Just so as far as I know, from all accounts, the Happy Sailor mechanical head, unless Richard Edlund produces it from what's left of his warehouse, as far as we know, that may not exist anymore. So
sad.
Painful.
Now, Zed, what is your favorite Ghostbusters film? And then if you can rank them, and then what do you think of the female version? And then same question to you, Dan. I kind of want to hear.
That's a loaded question, man.
Make it short.
Okay, all right. Let's see. Favorite Ghostbusters film. I think favorite is different than best. So I think the best one's the original. I think that film really was lightning in a bottle, top to bottom, side to side. The performances, but not only the cast, the crew as well. They had, John DeCure and John DeCure Jr. doing production design. John DeCure, of course, having won an Oscar for Cleopatra, and so he was used to great epics like that. They had Theone Aldridge as a costume designer, Elmer Bernstein for the score. I mean, they really had a classic Hollywood all-star team working on this production that I think is even today probably underappreciated for what it really was. And it was kind of the only project like it at the time. And since then, really, you don't really have that many heavy hitters working on projects like that these days. So I think the original is probably the best, even though arguably it's a movie about nothing because there's really, they just kind of show up and do the thing and leave. But I think just and then the comedic performances, it's still is, I think, one of the best comedies of all time. I think it still holds up today. Favorite movie is Ghostbusters 2. Again, that was, I watched Ghostbusters through my childhood, but I gravitated towards Ghostbusters 2 more. And I think that it is such a, Ghostbusters itself is, I think, almost more timeless than Ghostbusters 2. Ghostbusters 2 is definitely a product of the late 80s. You had Bobby Brown on the soundtrack. I mean, it was definitely a product of its time and doesn't as easily translate across time as the first one does. Afterlife, again, when that came out, I wanted to see it in the theaters. That was, 2021 now, I think. because
Yep.
I think it got delayed for COVID, and then it came out like right late or something like that. And going back to the theater still wasn't a big experience even then. So it really shocked me when they said, when it was successful enough to make a sequel. That did shock me. But we had actually rented out a theater, about 100-seat theater, just for me and my wife and the kids, and my mom. So we all went and watched that by ourselves.
Nice.
Actually, I think 2 days before it came out. So I managed to finagle my way into somebody's email at Sony and got a preview showing of that. So that was really cool. But like I said earlier, I don't think I've actually watched the entire movie since I watched it in the theater. Maybe once since then. The last 20 minutes when the original guys show up, that's the best part of the movie to me. Now, I don't mind the story how it was, and I think overall, Ivan Reitman, it was, or excuse me, Jason Reitman, it really was a love letter to his childhood and his dad and what his dad created all those years ago, and just the reverence that they really put in every single scene. Good story or not, I think you have to have some appreciation for that. He really, all the extremely subtle Easter eggs that even the most hardcore Ghostbusters people may not recognize on the first viewing. They really put time and thought and energy into each frame of that film. Again, good or bad. Overall, I enjoy it, but the last 20 minutes are my favorite part. Just because it does have the guys in it. And then, we saw that, and I kind of thought, all right, Ghostbusters is done. That's the Ghostbusters 3 that we all might not have been the one we all imagined, but that's the one we got. And, if that's where it would have ended, I think it would have been fine. They, of course, came and shot, famously, they used Hook and Ladder 8 in Tribeca for the exterior of the firehouse, and then Ladder 23 on Skid Row in L.A. for the interior portions of the firehouse. And I believe, it was also used in other movies. I think it had a short, not a cameo, but it was in The Mask with Jim Carrey, I believe.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I think it's when he's like walking into a chop shop or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was the interior of the firehouse in that movie too. But they went and shot the post-credit scene of them pulling the Ecto-1 into the firehouse, thankfully before the interior was gutted, because I think now someone's trying to make it into art installation or something like that. So the old interior of Firehouse 23 doesn't exist anymore. But front to back, that was definitely a love letter from Jason Reitman, and I can appreciate it for that, as far as that goes. Now, Frozen Empire, that is an interesting movie. It's kind of a fun movie. It was really fun to watch it at the premiere. I think if anyone can ever do it that way, that's definitely the way to do it, because you're in a theater with people who want to be there for that movie. It's kind of like the Avengers movie, and everybody in those theaters was there, and it was kind of an event type thing. So that was fun. I can honestly say I haven't watched it again since then. Not that it was a bad movie. It just, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what I would have done, but it might not have been that. Yeah. It was cool to see all of the original cast, out there kind of doing their thing again. I know just from kind of circumstantial evidence that the movie was definitely reshot and chopped up, and a lot of, I think there was a lot of story was just cut out and and it was lost in editing. So I'd love to know what the original Frozen Empire script had in it, and how it originally played out. I think Gil Kinnan did a pretty good job, but it's I don't know. For me, that would definitely be at the bottom of the list. So just my personal rankings, Ghostbusters 2 would be at the top just because it is my favorite movie out of the bunch, I think, followed by Ghostbusters, followed by Afterlife, with Frozen Empire at the bottom. Now, as far as the female Ghostbusters movie is concerned, I don't hate it, and I don't love it. And it has nothing to do with the fact that it's an all-female cast. It has nothing to do with any of that. I think it just... I think it's too messy of a movie for me. All of the leading ladies in that movie, I think, independently, they are all very good at comedy. That's not necessarily my brand of comedy, but they're good at what they do. I think just structure-wise, production-wise, it had a lot of issues. Now that came out, gosh, I want to say, 2016, I think?
2016, I think, yeah, 2016.
My son had just turned 5, and we got to go watch. I got to take him to the theater to watch that. So that was really his first Ghostbusters theatrical experience. Now, as far as that goes, you can't replace those memories. I like the movie for that. He was a kid. He was laughing. That's what made it worth it. But, I think where a lot of the reviews skewered negative, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily, I don't have a negative view of it. I have positive memories of it just because it has positive memories with my son associated with it. But, no, I don't think I've watched that one since I saw it in the theaters either. That was a Ghostbusters movie, but it wasn't Ghostbusters to me. So
Right.
I'll just leave it at that.
Dan, what about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same as Zed. I mean, the first Ghostbusters, the Ghostbusters, that I love that film. And it's, Ghostbusters 2, basically the order in which they were released, except for the all female Ghostbusters. I'm a huge Kate McKinnon fan. I think she's hysterical on Saturday Night Live. She just has that just her personality, even in the Barbie film, how she was. So definitely, not knocking them whatsoever. It didn't hit for me. Again, it was I didn't really go into expectations other than be entertained, which it more or less was. Yeah, I'm the newer installments of the films. Afterlife. I'm a huge Stranger Things fan. Seeing Finn Wolfhard in that was really cool. Paul Rudd, I think he's great. Just his kind of, not saying, absent-mindedness, but kind of just the goofiness, and seeing him, in a Ghostbusters film was cool. Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with it. Alex, what about you? Do you have a preference?
Well, for me, it's really weird because there's only few films out there that's like, to me, 1 and 2 are as, they just perfect and good. Like, I can only name Home Alone, for example, right? It's like 1 and 2. I cannot tell you which one is better because to me, it's like a whole, they're both amazing. So this is like kind of the same category where just like first and second film, to me, I take it as like a 1. You know what I mean? I can't split them because I like them both at the same time. Like, they're both great. I can only think of, Home Alone and Ghostbusters. For me, it's like those films that just like, I cannot separate them. It's like, I look at it as like the package, you know what I mean? So that's definitely, so for me, not 1 and 2 is number 1. And then Afterlife, I agree. I was actually surprised how I enjoyed it. I didn't think I'm going to like it as much as I did. So I was surprised there. So that's, I would say 2. And then the Frozen Empire, I didn't care for much. So again, like, I saw it was fun, but I don't have to see it ever again. And then the female version, there are certain films for me, I call them like the plane films, where like, I know it's like you watch it on the plane because you feel like it's gonna be kind of like okay, so you don't feel wasting your time because you're still flying somewhere. So that was my plane category movie, which I saw it on the plane, and it was cute. I again like use that. I have to see it ever again, but I enjoyed it. It was fun, but it was for me, it was like a plane film that you fly somewhere, you watch it, just kind of like popcorn, one and done. But yeah, definitely one and two is like you cannot compete with that. It's amazing masterpieces.
I like that. The plane film. Get the plane, kind of like the stepchild, put him in the corner.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh,
But you didn't get to pick it on the plane. The pilot picked it, and you have to watch it.
Well, there are other options there too.
Everybody's screen gets the same thing.
that's funny. But Afterlife. I liked how they, like you said earlier, is that the little Easter eggs. You had the Shandor mining company, so kind of tying that
Yeah.
to the first film, to where, the Dana Barrett's apartment. That's where he's actually. So I like stuff like that, and just the whole Easter eggs kind of like gives the goosebumps some extent. It's just cool to see things reappear and make those connections. And I think when those things do happen, it definitely excites a lot of people. And you know hopefully especially new films coming out with cast reuniting, Spaceballs, and I'm sure they'll be including those things to get the older the original fans excited and hooked into it. But it's small details like that always get me and make me feel more connected to the film.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, so Zed, kind of one last things we ask people. It's before we wrap up the show is what's your advice to collectors? A lot of people say collect what you love, or do you have a specific piece of advice you always live by whenever going after something in auction or something, private deal?
Well, I do collect what I love. I collect things that resonate with me and my childhood. Uh, yes, the Boba Fett blaster that just came up,
Yeah,
that's cool. But even if I had a spare $500,000 to throw down on that, I don't think I would have. That's not what I collect. So I would say, you know, find out find out what you love. It might be a million things. It might only be one thing. For me, it really came down to just Ghostbusters. So that's mostly my one thing. And start. Don't be afraid to network with other collectors. It might seem daunting. Some of these people may seem so far up here that, how could I ever talk to them? Because they've got all this stuff, and it's, they're obviously so much more advanced in this hobby than I am. Most collectors, this is such a small hobby, really, that most collectors will absolutely talk to you and share their advice. I would definitely say, if at all possible, collect within your budget. Set a collecting budget and collect within your budget. Don't go into debt for the Ghostbuster costume and then count on that to keep you warm when you lose your house or something. Just stay within your budget and do your research. It's very important to research pieces. That of course I think is the common question that everybody gets, that you keep hearing over and over, is, well, how do you know that's real? How do you know it's real? Well, you have to be able to say something better than I just know. And you have to, there, these days, especially with newer properties, you have to be careful because there are rather unscrupulous people out there who have made a dozen Thor hammers or what have you. And, they'll sell it to you, but they can't tell you where it came from and they can't give you any details. And so, research is definitely an important thing. I always recommend to people, just start going through old copies of profiles catalogs. Start going through all the prices realized on Heritage and Prop Store. Just see what's out there. Kind of get an idea of what things should look like, what they go for, and just be careful out there because it's a fun fun thing to get in, but it can definitely draw you in very quick and drain your bank account.
For sure.
Be smart saving, do your research, and keep those auction catalogs. And it definitely paid off for you, Zed. Case in point, your recent purchase with Heritage. That's the home run in my book, and I'm really happy that happened to you. 'Cause that's I love when great things happen to great people and people who have a deep passion for their collecting area. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you, and it is worth noting, speaking of that catalog, that I did get it for $1,000 less than its 2006 estimate. So
Amazing. Now that's a deal.
I love that. That's awesome. But Zed, you're on socials. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at GB Artifacts, Ghostbusters Artifacts. That's where I post most of my collection.
Very cool. So people out there listening, follow Zed. Definitely tune in because I definitely love when he posts new things. So it always gets me excited. And yeah. So Zed, thank you for taking the time out today on your busy Sunday. Really appreciate it. Glad we can connect and had a blast. And looking forward to our next conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you all very
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you for your time.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys.